Hello and welcome to my channel, Making Crafts. If you recall, several weeks ago I created tags using this Decoupage Queen paper pack. And so I'm back with this paper pack today, and I'm so sorry if you've been following along waiting for me to create a journal with this. I am sorry that it's taken me so long because I can't remember how long ago it was when I made these, but I will link to this video below, and I'll try to put it in the upper right hand corner as well. But we created these tags in that video using this paper pack along with the butterflies. It's a Tim Holtz butterfly die. And all of this, the dies and the paper, came from the rubber buggy, and this is my design team project for the rubber buggy this week. And so I have gone ahead and picked out the papers that I'm going to use from the kit to work on this journal, and we're going to create a little expandable journal. So what I want to do first is I want to start out creating the expandable pages for this journal first. And so I want to start out with this one. For the first page, it's a very simple page, and so what we're going to do is we're going to start out with just a piece of paper that measures 10 by 10. So I'm going to use this one, but I want to make sure that I don't cut a lot of my structure off this building. I'm not sure that it's a house, but I don't want to cut a lot of it off, so I'm going to try to figure out where to line it up on here so that I don't. Save your scraps because we can use these in our journal. So for this page, we're just going to do some folding. So first, we just want to fold our page in half, just lining up our edges. Now this journal these pages are not my original idea. I did not come up with this. I just learned how to do this and decided I saw this and wanted to just give it a try. I've actually never tried it, and so I've tried the pages themselves, but I've not ever made a journal with them. So I thought it would be fun to see if we could make a journal using these expandable pages. So just going to fold it in half one way, and then we're going to take and fold it in half the other way. So you go from side to side and then from top to bottom. Just lining up your edges. Oops. The paper is thick, so you have to just be careful with it. Now I'm going to get my bone folder out, or really my stainless tool here. I'm not sure what it's called. And I'm just going to score these lines. So now we have our two folds. What we want to do is we want to be sure that we have our paper, in the right direction. Turn the right direction. The top's up here and the bottom's down here. Then we're just going to flip it over to the back side, making sure we don't mess up our direction of the top and bottom. So then we're going to take the right hand corner and we're going to fold it, the top right hand corner, fold it to the left bottom corner. We just want to fold a diagonal line in there. Just be sure to match up all your corners and the edges of your paper. So we're just matching up the edge of our paper here, and then just have to fussy with it for just a minute, and then we want to make sure we're lining up these corners here. I'm just going slow with this. Take your time with this, no rush. Because this one, you want to get your folds right. You want to fold those corners in half. And then once you've got it right, you can just press it with your bone folder. So then we're going to open it. So when you open it back up and you turn it over, you'll see it's wanting to buckle like this. Well, that's perfect because that's what this page does. It just folds in like this. And so now I'm just going to fold it in, and I'm just going to press it. And I will show you that fold once again. This one opens up like this, but then you have your corners here, and they just fold down. And that's a very simple little expandable page, and I'll show you how we're going to sew these in later, but for now we're just going to make all the pages. We're going to get all those together, and then we will work on how we're going to sew them in. So we're going to lay that one aside and we'll work on the next one. Okay, for the next page, we are going to be using a 10 by 10 piece of paper again. And please overlook this line here. It is early in the morning here, and the sun is beautiful today, but I've got the blinds closed, but there's something, certain spot of the blind that's coming straight across my craft table. And so normally I craft in the afternoons and you don't see that. So just overlook that. Hopefully it doesn't bother you too much, because it is gorgeous here today, so I can't complain about the sunshine at all. So for this piece of paper, it measures 10 by 10. I'm just going to make another simple expandable page, and this time we're just going to fold again. We're going to start out by just folding our paper in half again. And you could score this. You could just score down the middle, but I'm just going to do the folds instead of scoring. So I'm just going to make sure I line up my edges here and the corners, make sure everything's lined up straight, and then I'm going to press it down. And then I'm going to score it really good with my scoring tool. Okay, so then I want to take, once again, fold from top to bottom. Doing the same thing, just lining it up corner to corner. And this will probably show me if I cut my paper crooked. Sometimes I cut it crooked, but if it does, you can just trim it up. It doesn't have to be exact 10 by 10. It will be okay. Okay, so then I want to open it back up. And so I have 1, 2, 3, 4 little, this is going to actually be pages, 4 little squares. So what we want to do is I want to come in and I want to cut right here on this one. But I think I am going to use my scoring tool there because I need 1/8 of an inch. Let me see if my scoring tool even has that. I can't even remember. So let's take and put this in our scoreboard with, this is your left-hand side. Put the left-hand side to the top of your board. And then, let's see if I can find my scoring tool. Here it is. And let's just score 1/8 of an inch. So what we're going to do is we're going to score. So you want to make sure that your fold line here, if it's at 5, you are going to score at 4 7/8. And you're just going to score to the center line there. So right, I'm going to put my finger where the center is because it's hard to see on this paper here. That's just going to be our guide, our 1/8 inch guide. And so what we're going to do is we're going to cut on our 5-inch score line and our 4 7/8 inch line all the way up to the center here. And I'm going to turn mine over on the solid side so I can see better. Well, not so, it's not actually solid, but it's more solid than the other side. I can actually see it on this side. And I'm just going to cut off both of those score lines. That's going to just leave a little 1/8 of an inch gap, and it helps to make this easier to fold up. Get my little scissors out for this part here. Just cut this little strip off. We're just going to cut it right there at the score line. And there is another easy page. And like I said with the other one, we'll come back and I'll show you how we're going to attach these in our journal once we get all of the pages put together. I just want to take a look there. If you're like me and you left just a little bit right here on that little, you want to get all that out there. Where we're cutting the little piece out. If you left just a little bit all the way up to the score line, you just want to nip that out so that it's straight right in there. You want that line to be straight, so when you fold it up here, you don't cause any problems with your fold here. So now we have 2 of the pages made. Let's work on the 3rd expandable page. Next page, I am going to be using these 2 sheets of paper, and the sun is coming further down, so hopefully you can see and this is not bothering you. I'm trying to get it in the light here where you can see which pages I'm using. So this one takes a little bit more thought because you want to think about the layout of your page and how you're going to cut it, because we have to do quite a few more cuts for this one. Okay, so for this one, I'm going to try to cut different pieces of this out to form this page. So hopefully this works because I haven't tried it yet. So for the first cut, I want to cut a 5-inch strip. And I do have my light on because I want to see where this is going to cut into and make sure that's going to be okay. Make sure I got everything lined up straight. So I'm going to cut my 5-inch strip that way. I'm going to cut that light off so it doesn't glare up at you. And then for the next cut, let's cut this one at 5.5. We're going to go 5.5 right here. So that is one of our first pieces. And then we're going to cut this piece at 5 1/4. And I'm just trying to decide what part of it I want on my page. So I'm going to cut it this direction at 5 1/4 because I want this butterfly to be on there. So that's 5 1/4, or I got enough room I can really make a decision if I want it to be higher up. I think I'm going to cut the 5. How much would that cut off the bottom there? I'm going to cut it off the bottom of mine, so 5 1/4 here. So I like it like that because it will make the butterfly closer to the bottom. So you just have to think about how you want it. And you're going to want to watch this all the way through before you start creating yours. That way you kind of understand what I'm doing. When I get done, you'll see what you're coming up with and it'll make better sense. So what we have left over is this piece here where we cut our 5-inch strip off of. So now I've got to cut a different direction on it to get my 5 by 5.5-inch piece. So I'm going to cut 5 inches this way this time. So then I'm going to turn this one because I want the butterflies to be on the square that I'm using. So I'm going to cut it at 5 1/4 for this piece. And I know that this seems confusing if you've not seen how this is put together. And then the last one, I need another 5-inch strip. I just want to decide where I want that. I don't want to cut her head off. So it's probably going to be best to cut it like this. I'm just going to take a look here. So we're going to cut a 5-inch strip again. And I'm saving all these once more because I will be using these. I know I say this all the time, but we'll use it in a journal. If we don't, we'll use it with something else later. So this is 5 inches, and so then we're going to turn it and cut it at 5 1/2. And I don't want to cut her off, so I'm going to cut off at this end. And there we go. So now we have most of our pieces. We got one more piece to cut for this page, and then we'll put it together. So our last piece, we need a 5 by 5-inch square. So I just have to decide where I want that. I think I want this piece off the bottom here. So it's very important to watch the whole process of this video and then come back and create this with me, because some of this is a bit confusing. This page is a bit confusing at first, but once you see it put together, it's very simple. But when you're doing the scoring, if you don't know what you're actually creating, it may you may mess up. So I want to go through these real quick of how I scored them. And I want to try to explain how I did it. So when I cut my first piece here, I cut it at 5 by 5.5. And so this is going to be the top of my page. So for this to be the top of my page, I need to score it so that it's 5 inches this way. So I'm just going to turn it in my paper trimmer so that the top of my page is to the left-hand side, and then I'm going to score, and so then I've got my 5 1/2 inch side to the top, and I'm just going to score at 5. So then the second piece that we cut was this one with the butterfly, and we cut it at 5 by 5 1/4. So I know that this is going to be the bottom of my page, so I'm going to turn the bottom of my page now to the left-hand side, and I want to score, and I've got my 5 1/4 inch side to the top of the board, and I want to score at 4 3/4. So now let's do the second second set that we cut. So this set we cut differently. We cut it at 5 this way and then 5 1/2 this direction. So when I put it in my board, I'm just going to put the 5-inch side to the left, and then, or the 5-inch side to the side of the scoreboard, and then the 5 1/2 inch side to the top, and we're just going to score this 5 1/2 one at 5. And then the last piece we cut it at 5 this direction and 5 1/4. So what I want to do is, I'm just going to flip it over so that it helps me. I'm going to put it in my scoreboard with 5 1/4 inch side to the top, and I'm going to score at 4 3/4. And I've already scored that, so I didn't get off that line. I was just showing you where I scored. And then we have our 5 by 5 inch piece, so we don't need to do anything to that. So we have all of our pages cut and scored, and I know that this seems like a strange way to make a page, but in order to do it in the size that I was creating the other expandable pages and to do it with 12 by 12 paper, this is the way I came up with creating this expandable page. Now the expandable page idea was not my own. I saw one like this, but it used 14 by something paper, something a lot larger, and so I decided to try and give it a try just using 12 by 12 paper and come up with my own way to create a page that was expandable. And it was similar to what I saw, but cutting everything down. So for this one, we have one more step to do, and that is I want to cut another 5 by 5 piece, and I'm going to cut off the bottom here. So let me put this over at the 5-inch mark. And then I'm just going to, let me cut that down first. I'm going to put it in my paper trimmer, and I'm just going to put the corners, and I'm trying to decide which corners I want to cut off. I think I want to cut it this direction, and we're going to make some little corner pockets for this page as well. So there we have these two pieces. Okay. So now let's start constructing the page. So this one, I'm just going to lay it out for you at first so you can kind of get an idea of how this page is going to work. So then, like this. So we're just going to, and I know I've got my camera zoomed out as much as I can, and I know you can't see the whole page, but this is kind of how the page is going to go together. So what I want to do first is, if you remember, we scored all of these so they have a 1/2 inch little tab here. For better words, I can't think of what I want to call it, but a little tab there. Well, we want to take, now that we've got them laid out, this is my top piece and this is my bottom piece. I want to take those two and score them again. So let's lay these aside. So I want to take my bottom piece and I want to put it back into the scoreboard, and we've got our score mark at 4 3/4. You just want to go back 1/8 of an inch and score again. So that's the blue mark on mine that's between 4 1/2 and 4 3/4. So we're just going to score because we just want the little 1/8 of an inch score here. And I'm just going to slowly do that so I don't get off of my spot. So there, we're going to do that one, and we'll have an 1/8 of an inch score, and then we'll just fold up on that score mark. I'll just fold that over. So that's just going to help us add a little bulk in for this one when we fold it up. And so see, it gives us a little bit of a space there. So then we're going to take the top one and we're going to put it back in here. And you remember we scored at 5 on this top one because it was 5 1/2 and we scored at 5. We're just going to go back one mark, which would be 1/8 of an inch, and that is going to be the little blue mark between 4 3/4 and 5, which is, this is the 4 7/8 mark. And we're just going to score down our paper there, and we're just making another little bitty spot in there to help with the bulk of this project. I'm just going to fold on that. Fold back here. And so it gives us that little bit in there, like a little pocket in there. So now we have, this one got curled up somehow. We have our little pocket here that we're going to be using, our little triangles, and then we have these two pieces, the top and the bottom, and we have these. So all of these that we scored, it's our 1/2 inch score mark. I want to fold that in towards the images that's going to be standing up. So the image that's going to be facing you, you want to fold that towards you. So I'm just going to do that. And this one, I'm just going to do the 1/2 inch again, and then we'll come back with our 1/8 inch mark again, because we're going to need it to be folded on the 1/2 inch mark to help us glue it down. And hopefully I'm explaining this well. It's sometimes hard to explain things like this when you're doing it, because I know what I'm doing, but sometimes it makes it harder to tell you on camera what I'm doing and you not be here and have, because if it's easier if you were here, because you could ask me questions. So if you do have any questions, be sure to ask me below. I do not mind answering questions, and if I have to, I can make an extra little video to explain anything. I just, I'm trying to, hopefully it's coming across understandable. So here's our centerpiece. So I'm going to have mine facing up like this, but I want to make sure I got the right side up. So I'm going to set these to a side. I'm going to start out with the two side ones. So I'm just going to add glue once again to the 1/2 inch flap. And I want to start with the side ones first because I'm going to try and hide this little seam here. So I'm going to just glue this to the middle piece. And what I'm going to do is fold this over so I'm sure to just line up the edges here. And that way we really don't have any sticking out from the back side. I'm just going to press that down. And then I'm just going to do the same thing to the other side. Just going to line it up. So I've got my flap folded over and I'm just lining it up with the edge here. I'm just going to press it down. And I want to keep flipping it over to make sure it's not sticking out. With these colors, it's really hard to see, so I want to make sure it's not sticking out the back as well. And it's not. So now for the top two, doing this exactly the same way, adding glue. Now with this one, remember we put that 1/8 inch score line in there. We're not adding glue to that. We're just putting glue on the 1/2 inch flap, and then we'll come back and get that 1/8 inch score line so that we have that that little gap in there to make everything have room to fold up. So I'm just lining up the edges again. This time making sure everything's lined up. Oops. May have went over the score line a little bit on the other side. So you want to be inside the score lines on each side here, so be sure that you focus on that. And I'm sorry for that noise. I am dog sitting, and he just went and got the bowls to remind me that it is supper time. So he is ready for me to come dip his food. So I may have to pause in just a minute and get him his supper. He's a little schnauzer just like my girls, but he's used to eating supper a little earlier, and so I think he's ready to eat. I think he's used to eating supper anyway. It's early because he comes and gets this bowl and lets me know every night about this time now. So I'm thinking this must be his supper time at home. So let's finish the bottom one up, and then I'll pause and do that. And then I'll come back and we'll finish this up. Once again, at the bottom here, let's just make sure we line it up with the bottom edge and that we get it inside of the score line so that everything can fold over. There we go. And see, it's going to fold up like this, and then here, and then over. And so our little 1/8 of an inch score line there gave us enough room to hold all that in there. So we've got this here. So this is where we went in and cut out a piece to make pockets. And I'm just going to make the pockets. I'm trying to decide now, do I want to use one of the pockets like this and just go like that? Just going to take a look. Or do I just flip it over? Even though it's going to be a little sideways, I don't know that you can tell once I get it in here. And it'll be like that. It's a lot of colors going on. Make sure it's going to fold over. Yes, that will work. I actually think I want to ink these pockets before I glue them on so that you can see them crisscrossing, and then I can go back and ink around all the other edges, no problem at all. It's just that these need to be inked before I glue them. So I'm inking this with some dark ink. This is the Memento Tuxedo. I think I'm going to use black on this journal. I might come in with brown thread as well. I'm not really sure. I may should have inked this in brown, but we will see. It's not that big a deal. I think that stands out better now. I think that looks good. Let's glue those down. And so you can see I'm covering up these seams here when I do glue them down. So I'm just going to add glue across the bottom and up the straight side. I'm going to put this one on the bottom of the crisscross, staying inside of my score lines here with this fold. We want to stay inside of that. And then we're going to do the same thing on this one. There we go. Just press that down. So now we have our pocket in here. Let me see if I can find some scraps. So you can tuck in that pocket, but then you can also tuck in the back here. So it's just a layered pocket. I think this is a good stopping point. We have our 3 expandable pages made, and this was the hardest part, I think, about the journal, is just getting these pages put together. So I will be back in the next video showing you how I put the journal together, and we'll also be creating a cover for this journal. Well, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye.